off. All right, so we are now recording, and welcome to everyone who has joined. I'm sure we will have a few latecomers. Now, just a few housekeeping rules, just to ask everyone to keep their cameras and microphones off until the Q&A section, which will be at the end. You are more than welcome to jump into the chat, introduce yourself, let us know where you are dialing in from today. If you do have any burning questions at any point in time during today's session, pop them in the chat or in the Q&A section that you will see on your screen, and I will collate those and we can ask those to Jaymie at the end of the session. Now, we are recording this, so if there is a need for you to dash off for any reason, you will receive a recording at the end of the session. But a very warm welcome to everyone who has joined us today. We are very lucky to have Jaymie Rowland with us today. And today's session is all about Beyond Change, leading with compassion for true transformation. Now, I am Sarah McLaughlin, the General Manager at Inspiring Rare Birds. And as I mentioned, we have Jaymie Rowland, who is the Executive Director of Franklin Shanks, joining us today. Now, to begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which, on the various lands on which we meet today, and any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people participating in this meeting. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and recognise and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and the waters of New South Wales. Now, for those of you who are new to Inspiring Rare Birds and to our community, our mission is really to support and promote diversity and inclusivity, where opportunities in entrepreneurship and leadership exist equally for everyone. Now, we are best known for our mentoring programs, but we also offer a range of educational masterclasses. We host online sessions like today, as well as in-person events, which all really provide an opportunity for people to build their networks and to grow within the Rare Birds community. Now, to learn more about Rare Birds, please let us know on the survey that will pop up during the session. Now, we have put it as an automated survey that will pop up in about 40 minutes or so. During this time, we just ask if you just take 2 minutes to give us your feedback, indicate if you'd like to know anything more about Rare Birds, or please feel free to reach out to myself or anyone on our team at Rare Birds. If you go to the team page, all our email addresses are listed. Reach out to us if you want to become a mentor or a mentee. We love growing our community, and each and every individual is very special to the community. And so we do really want to get to know you. So please feel free to contact us. Now, as I mentioned, I am Sarah McLaughlin, the General Manager. And we are very lucky to have Jaymie with us today. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Jaymie before I hand over. So Jaymie Rowland is an accomplished leader and passionate catalyst for transformational change. She has over 25 years of experience leading people across a diverse range of industries, including retail, medtech, and property, and the full breadth of organizational structures from startups to global giants. Jaymie delights in empowering teams, individuals, and of course, her Rare Birds mentees to embrace disruption, be curious, and seek out creative solutions to challenges. I love that bio, Jaymie. It's great. And welcome. And now I'm going to hand over to Jaymie to take us through the session. Jaymie, over to you.
Thank you so much. That was a delightful introduction, and I'd like to take you with me everywhere. Okay.
More than honored.
All right. But for those of you who'd like a little more and are sitting there wondering, okay, who is this woman and why should we care? Hang on, I'm trying to figure out how to do slides. Here we go. Effectively, as Sarah said, I've had a really varied career. And if you'd asked me at 18 whether or not I would jump from being a stage manager in theatre production to working in retail operations to working in medical device technology, to then finding myself running a consulting business in the commercial property space, I would have looked at you and said, that sounds completely crazy. But what, on reflection, I look back on and realize is one of the major themes that ties all of that change together is change. It's that I'm intensely curious, and all of the decisions that I've made throughout my career have been because I believe there's an incredible problem to solve, or I have questions that I'm just so curious about. And so I've made really strategic jumps throughout my career that look crazy on the outside, but internally are all about seeing an opportunity to really grow something valuable and sustainable. And also fundamentally, I just really love helping people. I'm hugely empathetic, and I'm really excited about not only making myself a little bit better every day, but about seeing other people grow and thrive. So safe to say, I'm a big fan of change, and it's certainly been a defining aspect of my career. I'm going to talk a little bit, before we talk too much more about my career, and I'll tell some war stories later on, and I think Sarah's got some questions for me. I thought it was important to just step into a little bit of theory. No, theory is a horrible word. I'm not going to use that word. I'll talk a little bit conceptually about change and transformation and what I think the differences between those two things are. And why, actually, it was one of the questions that someone asked in the registration process was, why do so many change projects fail? And I think it's a really valid question, and it's what I want to spend a bit of time on today. So the big elephant in the room is 88% of change initiatives fail. That's a figure from Bain & Co. All of the big consulting firms have their own figures. Some say it's more like 65, 70%. Some say it's 90, 95%. No matter what number you settle on, it's safe to say we all acknowledge that change is hard and change initiatives do frequently fail. And so the question is why? What is it that makes them fall apart? And I'm not going to claim credit for this list. This list belongs to a fantastic man named Campbell McPherson, who is an American change catalyst, who speaks really articulately on this. And you can certainly find plenty of videos from him on YouTube and things like that. This is quite a big list. We don't have much time today, so I'm going to focus on the two that I think are really at the core and that I'm really passionate about. The first one is that people don't like change. We've all heard that statement. I think if you went up to anyone on the street and said, how do people feel about change? They'd say they don't like it. I think that's rubbish. I actually think that people do really love change, but they're afraid of change that they don't understand. And if you think about it, everything that we have in the world is a result of change of some sort. Otherwise, we'd all still be amoebas. That we exist in the world that we do is all as a result of change. Not all change is good, but everything good that we have comes from change. So rather than think about it as people not liking change, I prefer to think about it as people not understanding change or people being afraid of bad change. None of us like bad things. We all like good things. So fundamentally, we love good change. We're afraid of change we don't understand or that we think will be negative. And so I think that's one of the fundamental things that you really need to cover off in a change project that a lot of the time is not understood and not given enough airtime early on in a change project, is this assumption people won't like it and we just have to get on and do it. And we set up some processes and we make everyone do it because people don't like change, but we're going to force them into it. Doesn't work. It's not sustainable. And the other thing that I think ties in very closely to that is number 8 on Campbell's list, which is emotions trump logic every single time. We are not logical beings. Anyone who tells you that they're logical isn't. They just think they are. Sorry, I have strong opinions. But fundamentally, everything we do and every decision we make is led by deep-seated emotions that will every time trump a logical process. It's the same in anyone who's ever studied economics knows that there's a subset of economics called behavioral economics, which is entirely founded on the basis that we're not logical beings. We will always make irrational or unpredictable choices based on emotional response. It's much, much stronger than any logical thought process or process that we might have. So I think that's a really fundamental piece of why a lot of change projects fail, is that they haven't put enough thought into or time into dealing with the emotions that people may have around starting a change project, and then also around the process of going through change, that your emotions will change during the change project. I'm really going to say that word a lot. I'm sorry. But fundamentally, at the end of the day, it's about remembering that we're not robots. We all have feelings, and we need to address them if we want a change project to be successful. So now I want to talk a little bit about change versus transformation. And it sounds like semantics, and I get a bit of eye rolling when I talk about this sometimes, because someone says, yeah, they're the same thing. They're not the same thing. They're, as I've said here, I think the two concepts are siblings, but they're not twins, and they both have a place. For me, a change project is something fairly quick and transactional that's external. It's foisted upon you. It's not something that you have developed from within. It's typically very process-driven things. It might be as simple as you have to catch the bus today because the trains aren't working, and that's a change that's been foisted upon you, and you deal with it and you move on. They're very simple. They're very transactional. If what you're trying to do is a much larger scale, complex change, I think it makes more sense to think of it in terms of transformation. And transformation, just like a caterpillar becoming a butterfly, is something that happens internally. It's something that you have to really desire for yourself. And the effects can be really long-term and really profound and sustainable, which I think is really important if you're looking at a change which is either in your personal life or in your professional life, where you're hoping to achieve a really significant evolution, or where you're needing to take a lot of people on a journey that's quite a long way from where they currently are. So that for me is the difference between the two. And as I said, I think they both have a place, and it's about understanding what level of change you're undertaking and how much input you need to put into designing the process, and really, again, thinking about the humans that are involved. Because humans are not procedures. When we make assumptions, we get the us and the you and the me, and we need to be cognizant of the fact that humans need a lot of work. We're tricky, we are unpredictable, and we have those pesky feelings that I keep talking about. So I think one of the things that is really critical when you're trying to make a big change, again, whether it's for yourself or for your team or your organization, is genuinely listening to yourself and to the people that are involved in the process, and listening to actually learn from them, and knowing that you can't make any assumptions about someone else's emotions, and that those emotions will absolutely drive every outcome. And quite often you don't find out what someone really thinks about a change project until it's failing, and until it reaches a critical point where they say, I'm out of here. That's when the true emotions come out. If you ask someone how they feel, typically they'll say, I'm fine, it's good. They might have some minor concerns. It's about really digging in and understanding, and giving your team and the people around you the space and the psychological safety to really explore how they feel about it. It's a slow process. It's a much slower process than anyone thinks. And typically I've found, and I have learnt this very much from experience, that just when you think that everyone is aligned and that everything is fine, guaranteed it's not. You need to dig another layer down, because quite often people won't really understand how they feel about something, as I said, until they really get pushed. So asking great questions, taking people on the journey. It's not necessarily about letting the crowd dictate the direction, but it's about making sure that they feel empowered and that they have some ownership over the process and that they've been consulted and, again, treated like humans. And I thought I'd share this, which is a little change matrix that I keep in the back of my head quite a lot. And I think when you're talking about that idea of digging down and getting to the core emotions that might be holding someone back from going on a change process, it's about really finding all of those layers of resistance. So to anyone who hasn't seen this before, it looks like nonsense, but hear me out. It's effectively about the pros and cons of either making a change or the pros and cons of not making a change. And until you understand all of those potential outcomes, you won't get to the heart of what's holding someone back from going on a journey. So to make sense of this, the story goes that you're standing on a beach and someone comes over to you and says, "Hey, I want you to climb that mountain." And you look at that mountain and you go, "No, I like the beach. I'm not climbing the mountain." Fair enough. And they say to you, "But there's a pot of gold at the top of the mountain and it's all yours. You just have to climb the mountain." And suddenly the mountain's a bit more interesting. And I'm thinking, I like the pot of gold. Maybe I could climb this mountain. But then you look at it in a little bit more, you might have said yes, right? I'm going to go climb the mountain. You get to the base of the mountain and you look at it and you realize that it's pretty steep. It's pretty crumbly. You're a rubbish mountain climber. Suddenly the negative consequences that might be on the table come to the fore and you become afraid because, hey, I might try and climb this mountain, but I might break my leg in the process. And I'm not sure that that pot of gold is worth me breaking my leg over. So you come back to no. And that's very frustrating. And that happens a lot of the time in organizations where a change project has been communicated, the dream has been sold, and then as you get to the commencement, once you start to actually have to do the thing that you've said you're going to do, it suddenly gets really scary because people think about how badly it could go. So you need to either smooth out the negatives. If we use the hill analogy, you've got to put a footpath up that mountain or provide me with a Sherpa. I don't know. Or you've got to make the pot of gold so significant that I don't mind 6 or 8 weeks of a broken leg. But either way, you've got to look at either increasing the positives or mitigating the negatives to really get people on that journey. And then slightly more confusing, I'm sure some of you have been looking at this going, why on earth is there a mermaid and an alligator on this? And this is not my story. This is a guy named Lars Axelsson who put this analogy together. It's not mine, but I love it. So then you look at the pros and cons of not making a change, which absolutely, anytime you present someone with a change process that they're going to go on, one of the things that they're going to consider is, what am I going to have to leave behind? And then in this instance, the reason you're on that beach is because you have a lovely mermaid girlfriend and she's pretty keen on you staying on the beach. She can't climb the mountain. That's pretty clear. So if you climb that mountain to get that pot of gold, you are giving up lovely mermaid girlfriend, which, again, depends on the relationship, but that I can see might be a really difficult thing for people to let go of. But then you have to think about what the negative potential consequences are of not making the change. And in this little story, the potential negative is the hungry alligator who is just in the next bay around, who's realized that there is a delicious mermaid to be had. And so what you may not yet be aware of, but that everyone needs to think about is, if we don't make this change, what could occur? Because fundamentally, not making a decision, not making a change is a choice in itself. And it's really important to understand that. So as in this instance, it's about, again, looking at what the potential positives are, making sure that they're aligned with what people care about, making sure that you smooth out the negative outcomes of making the change, but also that you uncover any potential negative outcomes of not making the change. A lot of the time in business strategy books and things, it's referred to as a burning platform. It's about creating an environment where people understand that to not move, to not change, can be just as detrimental as making the change, and that the status quo doesn't necessarily remain. That, again, everything changes. So I find that quite a helpful way of just articulating that idea that until you ask the question, you don't know that someone has a mermaid. You won't know unless you really ask detailed questions and you work out what it is that they really care about and what they're afraid of losing. And you then have to look at what they might lose just by not making the change, and then at how you can help mitigate some of those negatives on the pathway to making the change. Sorry, I know that's big, but I hope that helps. It helps me. And I often come back to questioning of myself, what is this person's mermaid? So fundamentally, because I'm conscious I don't have a lot of time and we really want to get into the question part of things, for me, getting it right in a change project is first of all about recognizing that we're all humans, not robots, and that if we're hoping to achieve big change, long-term change, then we need to really put humans at the heart of everything that we do. And we need to acknowledge that it takes so much more time for genuine development and change than we ever anticipate. It's really easy to write a process list and factor that all of those things might only take 5 minutes, but they won't. And it's really worth doing the legwork early on and making sure that you have engagement, because then you've got passion and you've got commitment. And once you have those two things, my experience has been people will follow you if you've communicated the dream and you've allayed all of their fears and you've really taken the time to make sure they're with you, not behind you. Then a change project can work. And I'm going to summarize it all with two simple things: that getting it right is about why and it's about when. So the why is the purpose. What are we trying to achieve? What is the outcome we're looking at? What is the end goal? How do we make sure that everyone is running in the same direction? But then it's about the when. And when is more about how you communicate that change, how long that process takes, and the timing. I've put a little picture here of one of my favorite books, which is called When, by Daniel Pink, who's phenomenal. And it's all about the secrets of getting timing right, because it's one of those ethereal things that's so hard to know ahead of time, so easy to get wrong, and also so hard to realize that it was timing that got it wrong. But what I mean about that in terms of timing and communication in a change project is making sure that you've done enough legwork in understanding people's concerns, that you've checked back in and recalibrated as you need to, and done those temperature checks all along the way, and dug a little deeper and been really annoying about people's feelings until you're confident that they are with you. And that's the right time to take the next step. If you're not confident of that, or if you're just unsure because you haven't asked the questions, the timing is wrong. And I was lucky enough years ago to do a change management course through Macquarie University, which put us through a massive simulation, computer game, where we had a whole list of tasks that we could do, such as, announcing to the team that we were doing this thing and doing a workshop, and all of the steps that might be involved in a change project within an organization. And we were told to put them in the right order. And if we put one thing in the wrong order, such as the CEO making a speech before we did the workshop or whatever it might be, then the results were disastrous. But if you got the timing right and you stage things appropriately and you give enough space between each step to allow people to think and digest and decide to come with you, then you can proceed successfully. And finally, the last thing that I have on there is commitment. It's about being 100% committed to the goal, back to that why, back to that purpose. It's being committed all of the way through. And John Lennon made a great comment years ago, which was, it'll all be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end. And I think that's really, really appropriate for change projects, that they're like a roller coaster. And when the roller coaster is on the way down the hill, it's terrifying and everyone's screaming. If you stop the change project, then of course it looks like failure. But if you let it go back up the hill again, everyone's excited and it's great. What you actually really want to do is allow something to come to its natural end, because at the end of the roller coaster, when everyone gets off, it's all smiles and excitement. And that's when you know that the change project is finished. And if you pull the pin too early, I find typically that's one of the big reasons for that 88% number, is everyone loses the commitment too early in the process. Stay the course. And so that is the end of the formal bit. All I will say is, remember that change happens to us, whether we like it or not, but that transformation piece is something that we have to do within ourselves, and we have to allow people to go on the journey with us. That's me.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jaymie. I love what you were saying, because I think that that can take you through all kinds of areas of your life, whether it be business or personal. Just stay the course. It's all about the journey. Just keep going. I need to take that in myself.
Yep. If you believe in it, you just got to hold on through the downhills.
Yeah. Well, I have a few questions that I'd love just to throw over to you. And obviously, if there are any further questions from the audience, please feel free to put them in the chat, and I can obviously read those out now. And obviously, I think you're probably going to have to give us a little bit more context in terms of ResMed sleep clinics, but I'm sure you'll get to that. But my first question is, what were the major challenges and breakthrough moments taking ResMed sleep clinics on a journey from physician-focused offering to a customer-focused mindset?
It was a doozy. I don't know if any of my ResMed colleagues have joined this today, but it was, so I joined ResMed, who, as said, are a sleep apnea medical device manufacturer. I joined them straight out of working for a luxury jeweler, which is a really weird leap to make. But I did that because they were in the process of acquiring a series of different businesses to create a customer-focused and direct-to-consumer part of their business, which they'd never had before. And so we bought 7 different businesses. Some of them were little ones with 1 or 2 clinics where the owner of the business would actually then stay working in the business as an employee. Some were quite large organizations that had a lot more structure and processes around them already. But fundamentally, the thing that united them all was that they were very medical, which they should be. If you're being treated for sleep apnea, you want someone who can genuinely help you with your health. But they were medical to the exclusion of the customer experience and patient care and journey, which has been a big part of my background, is designing customer experience within different organizations. So that became one of my key focuses. And so we had a whole team of people who were quite proud of their positions as CPAP technicians, which I didn't think sounded very sexy. And more so, not only did it not sound sexy, it didn't sound very inspiring. And imagine, someone who, and look, 1 in 4 people have sleep apnea. Everyone here today will either have or know someone who has sleep apnea. And it's really scary. It's when you receive a diagnosis, you probably haven't slept well in the last 15 to 20 years, which is not good for you. So it affects your judgment, and it massively affects your emotional responses, not in a good way. And so you're afraid. You've just been told that you have this incurable disease, which you're going to have to treat with a sleep apnea machine, which, to be honest, is no one would do it by choice, but it is a very, very effective treatment. And so you've got these people who are afraid. they're facing down the barrel of a lifelong change. They're going to have to spend money they don't want to spend on a treatment that they don't want to have. And we're asking a CPAP technician to handle that process with them, to take them on that journey and to get them on care. So we went through a process of saying, well, hang on a second. We know that patient outcomes are directly linked to patient experience. You have a good experience, you're much more likely to stay on care. So we put out, we made it clear to the team that some changes were happening. We were going to rebrand. We were going to revamp our offering and make it more accessible and enjoyable and all these sorts of things. And the thing that really became the crux of this project, that was that moment where we were hurtling down the roller coaster and we could have pulled the pin, was when we put out an anonymous survey to our whole team of 250 odd CPAP technicians and said, we don't think the name does you justice. We think you do so much more, and we think that your patients deserve so much more than a CPAP technician. It's not very inspiring. These are some options for what we'd like to call, what we'd like to rename you as, but we want your feedback. We want you to get involved in the process and tell us what you want to be called. Tell us what you think adequately describes what you do every day, which is listen to people and help people. We put in other option. It was multiple choice, and option D was other and tell us what you want. And safe to say that resoundingly, the response was CPAP technician. And what we realized in that moment was that we had not yet done enough work to prep them on what they were really already doing and reassure them that they weren't giving anything up, but that they, oh no, hi, Faz. We do have a ResMed person here. Yeah, sorry, you were stuck with me. But we didn't do enough early on to really engage them in what they were already doing and help them see that what we were trying to do was give them a title that enabled them to do what they were best at, which was really helping people on a scary journey. And so we settled on the name that, let's be honest, we'd chosen with the branding agency that we'd worked with and that I was personally really excited about, which was Sleep Coach. And that was met with a mixture of silence and frustration and outright anger. And I think there are some Jaymie-shaped voodoo dolls out there in the world that might still get the occasional pin. But we then had to go on a really long process to try and undo the initial fear and distrust. And we got a lot of comments back saying, well, you knew what you were going to do anyway, so why did you even ask us? So that was my big learning from that. And it's why I said a lot of the things that I said today, was that just when you think you've consulted enough, you haven't. And just when you think you've listened to your team enough, you haven't. You really need to uncover all of those fears before you start making the changes. So that was fun. But I learned so much from it. And we did, look, there is now, 5 years later, there is a team of, I'm hoping, really excited, really engaged sleep coaches out there in the ResMed universe who are genuinely changing people's lives and coaching them through one of the scariest things they will ever do from a health perspective.
I think this actually, I was going to ask another question, but I think what you were just talking about now kind of flows into something else that I want to ask you. And that was, given what you've said, what role does communication play in effective change leadership?
It's everything. It's absolutely everything. The process almost doesn't matter. It does, but you can figure out the process in 5 minutes, but the communication is critical, and it's as much about making people feel heard, and it's about realizing that communication is not a one-way street. It has to feel like it's two-way, and if it's going to work, it genuinely needs to be two-way. I said in that example, we already knew what we were going to do, and I think that's that was apparent to all, and that's the feedback that we got. And I stand by it being the right decision, but really taking that time to listen and make sure that you're getting genuine two-way communication is so important.
Absolutely. Now, I'm also just given that, I mean, this is great because this is just rolling into a whole bunch of questions I want to ask. So beyond communication, how do you adequately prepare a team for transformation? And what are the biggest hurdles that you have overcome?
Yeah. Look, I think it's more of the same, to be honest. It is about not being afraid of engaging everyone early. So it can be really tempting to say, well, the leaders need to decide, and then you need to decide the comms plan, and then go on the journey. I think that secret squirrel kind of attitude always gets out. People always know that something is happening that they aren't aware of, and there is nothing that makes people more afraid than when they think that they're being left out of something. It's a very powerful negative emotional response. So I think it's okay to be really upfront, really early on, and say, hey, we think we see a reason why we need to pivot or adapt or whatever it might be. And we're going to work with you all on it. Let people know right from the outset, and recognize that if you're running a team, the people in that team are going to be some of the best placed people to recognize what obstacles might be in the way, what you might not have thought of, and how you can really utilize all of the skill sets that are available to you and all the knowledge that's available to you to make it work as a team from the outset, and not dictate something later on with a sexy comms plan that's been orchestrated to within an inch of its life.
So I think what I'm hearing from you is take everyone on the journey. It's kind of, take the full team, regardless of, at what stage this, change has occurred, rather just put it out there. It's a process, but take everyone on that journey with you, which I love, which I have to admit, at Inspiring Redbirds, that's exactly what we do. We are a small team. We're very nimble. So if there's ever going to be any change, it's everyone gets in the room. This is what we're thinking. Please be part of the plans, be part of the journey. Obviously, there needs to be some structure. It needs to be in the best interest of the business at the end of the day. But, we want everyone to come on the journey and ensure that everyone's still part of that, end point, because we don't want anyone falling off halfway through or finding out, down the end that this is what we've decided on. And then someone goes, well, actually, I'm not okay with that. I'm out of this journey now. I'm not coming to the destination with you. So yeah, that's it's a great learning. I do have another question for you. How have you applied learnings from different industries, and what value does that bring to a change project?
It's the thing I love the most. I said every role that I've taken has been an industry jump. And it's, call me the poster child for transferable skills. I can help you sell your transferable skills like no one else. But it's, joking aside, what I really love about it is having a fresh, outside view of an industry. And it almost gives me permission to ask really dumb questions. And I will put up my hand and say, this is, I'm coming from the outside. This is what I see. This is what I don't understand. And that's really refreshing. And that's often less confronting to people who have been in the one industry or the one company for a long time. Is if it's, they feel like you're helping you along the journey, it can be a little bit easier to swallow, and those questions aren't quite as confronting. But what I then love about, I guess, being able to apply those skills and apply those learnings is that they are often simply, no idea is new. There's like 3 ideas in the world and they all just go around in circles. But it's about, again, having that fresh take on it, and having seen something applied in a different industry can really provide some aha moments when you share them with someone else in a different industry. And for me, one of the best learnings about that has been going from smaller retail organizations to large corporate kind of global giants is the notion of being lean and agile and, Six Sigma and all that sort of thing, which big businesses really like to talk a lot about. And that my time in startups and in smaller retail brands that have really low profit margins is that no one is as lean as a retailer. That I can guarantee you. And that you really learn to, I guess, cut through the noise of industry slang and, expectations or assumptions, because you've seen a different version of it somewhere else. And you can say, no, hang on. Does that answer that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you're talking about transferable skills, what skills are essential for effective change management? Is there a handful that you can kind of just rattle off for us that you would think are, absolutely need to be able to do this or be proficient in that in order to effectively, go through this journey and lead it?
I have two. And
Excellent.
Both of them apply to everything, not just change projects, but they're my two. And the first one is developing the skill of finding common ground with people. That for me is the core of everything. And it's the reason I do what I do, because I actually really enjoy doing that. But I think fundamentally, whether you're on a change project or you're in sales or marketing or whatever it might be, if you can, or at home, definitely at home, if you can find common ground, if you can focus, if you can make that your challenge to find common ground with the other person, you are 3/4 of the way there. Because as soon as, people love familiarity, they trust familiarity. If you can demonstrate to someone that you understand them and that you're not too dissimilar from them, that's most of the battle. So that for me is number one. Number two. Now, what was number two? No, I've got it. Number two is not being too wedded to your own ideas. That you've got to be willing to genuinely listen, and you've got to be willing to throw things out if they're no longer working. That I am not precious about my idea. If someone comes to me with something that's interesting that I haven't thought of, great, let's explore it. It may or may not be right. As you just said before, it's got to be right for the business. And ultimately, it's not decisions by committee. Someone does have to eventually make the call. But if you're the person making the call and you're not prepared to accept that your idea isn't as good as someone else's, disaster will usually ensue.
Thanks, Jaymie. Now, we do have a quick question here from our audience, and I'll just read it out for you. It says, what are the best ways to identify how well we got the timing?
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. But I think the only way that I've found is, look, certainly when you get it wrong, you really know about it. If people are screaming at you, you got the timing wrong. But if you've got it right, it can be hard to realize that it was timing. But I think for me, it's about trusting that you did get it right if no one's screaming. But also that if you've found a place of calm, then you've probably found the right timing to take the next step. That if people are overly excited, that can seem good, but it isn't necessarily great because they probably just haven't thought everything through. And if you're too quick to make a big, little changes, fine. But transformation, you need to slow it down a little bit. And if you've got to a point where you're really, really confident that you understand what all of the other key players in that change process are thinking and feeling, that's when you know you've got the timing right.
Great. Thanks so much, Jaymie. That was very insightful. Now, we don't actually have any further questions from the audience. But what does happen is that people jump off this call, they take this all away, they sleep on it, and often we get people emailing us questions saying, "Oh, do you mind if I just reach out to Jaymie? I've got a quick question to ask." So
absolutely, hit me up.
In the email that you will all receive after this, you will receive a recording of the session. We'll also pop in Jaymie's email address if you wish to reach out for her, reach out to her rather, with further questions, or if you just want to have a chat. I'm sure Jaymie wouldn't mind that. I'm just throwing that out there. I hope that's okay, Jaymie.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And if everyone has had 2 minutes just to fill out that survey, that's wonderful. That's obviously just to give Jaymie some idea of, whether you all enjoyed today's session. It's really very insightful for us also to understand what kind of content you would like to listen in on. And if you have any ideas for anything you'd like to hear in the new year, we are putting our calendar together for 2025. So hopefully we'll have Jaymie back on board. But thank you again, Jaymie. That was absolutely wonderful. A lot of learning came out of that. And thank you to everyone else. And whoever's in Sydney today, head to the beach if you can, because it is hot. Jaymie and I were just saying, like, whew, need a fan going on here. And I had to close all my windows because it was rattling everywhere in the house. So I'm going to go and open up my windows. But I hope everyone has a wonderful day. And we will see you all soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.